I'm ready, set, go. All right, so we're back. What we're going to do here is we're going to now try to make this image that we have, that we've sampled in the back and that we're now going to modify. We want to make it so that we can do translucent or alpha kind of things to it. Now, when you're sampling the data from the image with that image get command that we were using a minute ago, that one is this part. We're sampling the image from a certain location, but what does that data look like? Is it just red, green, and blue? Is it a single color? Is it a hex value? What the heck is it? So let's find out what that is first by doing a print command, and we'll tell it to print that get color variable. When I do that now and I run it, it will, as it continually runs and prints it out, you'll notice that down at the bottom, if I can get to it, there it is. You can see that it's giving me all these zeros, and it's continually counting up. This is how many frames have actually just run, and as it's going through and counting, it's showing me 0, 0, 0. Now, we know from playing with the color stuff that 0, 0, 0 would be black, and clearly this image is not black. So what is going on at this point? Well, what we can see here is that our step Y, when we're starting to count up, there's nothing that stops this program from continually counting up higher, higher, and higher. So we never put a condition in here to get rid of the, or to correct Y when it got out of bounds. So what was actually happening there is it was sampling color from way down the page, 300, 400 lines further down the page. What we need, though, is we need some sort of condition here that will make it so if y is greater than our size of our canvas, which is 400, if it's greater than that, then let's set y to equal to 0. Now what that should do is that should make it so that y now won't be anything but between 0 and 400. And in fact, I should probably, where did I start before? I started y at 1, so it was sampling some sort of color data. I shouldn't go all the way back to 0, should I? I should go to 1 as well. All right, so we've done that. We now have this, so when it runs, it might look a little bit different. It's stuttering a little bit as it runs, but I think, oh, here, we can kind of see it layering down on top of itself as it goes. So it's not continually trying to sample data that's further down below, and that's very much to be expected because of the way it's sampling. So this little bit, this little if statement condition here was critical to making this next step or two work. All right, now that I've got that, let's print out my, we are printing out. I should have looked at it. Let's look at the values that we're seeing down here, and we can see that the values are red, green, blue values that are showing up, and we can see that there's a 255 is the alpha, so there's 4 values. So that last one is the alpha. It's saying how transparent is it, and because it's 0 to 255, 255 means it's completely the colors are completely blocking out. If it was 0, it would be completely transparent. So let's set that value. Now, what are we looking at here, though? Why is it in these square brackets? That's because this data, when it pulls there, is pulling it into this little array. It's an array that has 4 different slots in there, and the slots are, or index spaces for it, are 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that means that if I wanted to look and just get the one color out of the image, I could do that and choose to select just that one color. And this opens up a whole new realm of kind of how you can treat the color and make it do different things. And we can play with that in the next video. In this video, we're just going to adjust just that last value, the alpha. And we want to set it to be something less than 255 so that they can layer on top of each other and kind of have that layered Chuck Close kind of vibe to it, or effect. So what do we need to do? We need to, once we get that color, I'm going to comment out my print color, so I'm not trying to print that out every cycle we go through this. And I'm going to tell my get color, and since this is now, we now know this is an array, we can say get color, and the first one, red, is going to be the 0. in the array, because arrays start at 0, if you remember from the previous class. 0, 1 would be red, green. Blue would be the second one, and 3 will be the last one. So if I put in 3 as my value, now I should be able to change just that alpha one, and I'm going to change it to just 30 for now. So that means it's not all the way full 255. I'm going to change that value, and then I'm going to use that value to run it. So now if I run this, you can see it's kind of fading in as the intensity of the color piles up on top of itself. So that's a way of kind of making those things run, and now just giving me this light color. I could go even less than that if I wanted. Go down to maybe 20. Here it's going to kind of fade in a little bit more as it builds up. But do we really want them all to be just on the same spot? Do we want them all to kind of pile on? And I think even for the case of the stroke, I might add some transparency there, so that gives it a little bit of a better kind of way when it runs in. I think what I want to do is I want to make it so these move around just a little bit and adjust as we go. Let me start off, or even before I get any further with the other one, let me see if I can't just make a way for it to slowly kind of step and get smaller, or make it more intense or something like that. I didn't practice this one, but let's see if we can experiment with it. Let's take the ellipse out of the code for a moment. Here we're getting just the rectangles each time it goes. And instead of doing it the way it's going on right now, maybe we can make this rectangle get smaller as it counts up and goes through each of them. So let's make it so it's going to subtract a random value each time it does it for our. So let's do this. We're going to say rectangle, and instead for the size, we will make it be minus random 10. And we'll do the same for the other one. So it'll give us a lot of different ones. We're going to say for that step, we're going to say minus random 10. Now we're going to kind of run out a little bit, try to keep it all on the proper lines. So let me see what we get here. Oops, I'm missing a parenthesis. So I need the random numbers in its own parentheses, but the rectangle big start is in its own parentheses as well. So when I run this one now, look at the effect I'm getting now. I'm getting this sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. It's not always in the same place. It looks a little bit more like kind of stained glass, the way it's kind of drawing the lines out. I could even change this and give it a bigger range. I can say -10, 10, and that would give it, just even for that one, you can see here it's kind of placing them a little bit off of each other. You're tending to layer over a little bit more as it goes. See if this one makes any sense to do this one as well. -10, 10. So now they're really kind of like layering themselves top and bottom and out of its position a little bit. And it's getting to be a little bit more abstract. Maybe in this case, I need to maybe use a smaller step to give it a little bit more overlay. And now you can see we're getting a series of different ones that are coming up as we do our, move this one over just a bit. So it's really it's changing it quite a bit as we develop this one. And as I play with these different numbers, I can think about how each of these random boxes is drawing, and they're layering over top of each other, and it's kind of giving me this, giving my image a much different kind of feel. And it's going to be a little bit different every time you run it. So keep that in mind as you go. Here, one last thing I will try to do, I'll put this ellipse back in, but the ellipse, maybe I'll add into that one. Well, let's experiment and see what it does with the one that was there already. Here, that's giving us kind of a grid to start off with. And maybe that kind of anchors it. Maybe it looks like a little bit different. I could add that same randomness to any of the variables I have and put it in there, so each of those times it does it, it kind of takes away a little bit of the mechanical-y bit of it and makes it look, oops, excuse me, a little bit more. So maybe I should add, let me add this to it. Since now I have a random number in there, a negative number in there, I don't need it to add both ways. So just makes more good mathy sense. I will move this over just a bit more. Random, all on that line. There we go. Click. All right. Oh, and I need to add it to this one too. So plus random. Whew, totally running out of space here. Okay, so let me move me over, the live me, and run this one again. What do I get? Now you can really see all the kinds of different layers and shapes that are kind of playing out as it goes. It's much different than what we were looking at before. And each time you run this, you're getting a little bit different kind of build and setup as its positions are still the same. And this is where maybe the last time you could go and say, hey, let's add in maybe a little bit of randomness here. So now our circles are a little bit bigger and over and under for each of those ones. So this is where I want you to really experiment. I want you to go through and say, hey, at what point can I do it? Can I layer it in? And you can see this one, it actually kind of is a little bit of alive and constantly kind of changing, and actually makes me look really terrible at the moment. But take your time to experiment with it just a little bit and see if you can't develop a style that is really yours by adjusting the step, by adjusting the alpha, by adjusting how much randomness in a certain direction you do. All of these things are things that are now in your toolbox that should allow you to create all kinds of different textures and colors and depths to what you're trying to do. Come back next time and we will play with the way that the color and limits happen, and we'll incorporate a couple other characters, and then from there I'm going to let you guys go wild with this one. So come back next and see what I do.